Have you ever hit send on a message and almost immediately felt that familiar icy spike of panic right in your chest? You know the feeling. You reread your own words, you check the punctuation, you start wondering if that period at the end of your sentence seemed, a little too aggressive. Did I say something wrong? Right? It's a question we've literally all asked ourselves in that tiny fraction of a second after a conversation ends.
And then the waiting begins. 5 minutes pass, then 10. You check your phone. Absolutely nothing. Why haven't they replied yet? The silence just starts to stretch out, and that tiny seed of doubt you planted just moments ago, it begins to sprout. Because you know they usually reply right away. You even saw them typing, and then they just stopped. The tension builds, and your mind immediately starts racing to fill the empty space. Before you know it, your brain has completely bypassed all logic and jumped straight to the absolute worst-case scenario. What if they're upset with me? What if this one text literally ruins the entire relationship? It's incredibly fascinating and, honestly, deeply frustrating how fast we humans can go from casually sending a text message to assuming we've completely alienated someone we care about. But hey, that's just during the day.
What happens at night? So, you're lying in bed at 3 a.m. You are completely physically exhausted, but suddenly, out of nowhere, a memory pops into your head. A deeply embarrassing, totally cringeworthy thing you said at a party 5 entire years ago. And your brain, in all its infinite wisdom, decides, hey, let's think about this for the next 3 hours. So you toss, you turn, and you are just utterly trapped.
Welcome. Today we're diving deep into this exact phenomenon. This explainer is all about the psychology of overthinking. We're going to uncover exactly why our minds get trapped in these exhausting loops, why some thoughts become basically impossible to let go of, and, most importantly, how we can finally learn to hit the brakes. All right, let's dive right in. Section 1. The overthinking trap, and when thinking simply stops working.
So let's define what's actually happening here. Now, thinking itself isn't a bad thing. Deep thinking is a phenomenal tool. It's how we solve complex problems, make critical life decisions, and plan for our futures. But overthinking happens when that mental tool stops being productive and your mind just spins its wheels. Psychologists generally divide this spinning into 2 main patterns. First up, we have rumination. This is when your mind is firmly trapped in the past. It's repeatedly focusing on past events, overanalyzing old mistakes, and just reliving negative experiences. Then on the flip side, we have worry. This is when your mind is entirely trapped in the future, constantly playing out these disastrous what-if scenarios that literally haven't even happened yet. One locks you in yesterday, the other locks you in tomorrow. And the tragic result? The present moment is completely erased.
Section 2. Your brain's protection system, the ancient bodyguard. We often view overthinking as a personal flaw or some sort of weakness, but it's actually this ancient survival mechanism. Think of it like an ancient bodyguard. To survive in a brutal, incredibly dangerous environment, our ancestors had to constantly predict what could go fatally wrong tomorrow. Thinking ahead, analyzing threats, that's what kept humans alive. Your brain isn't doing this to make you miserable, it is literally just trying to protect you. But here's where the system kind of glitches. Today, we aren't exactly running from saber-toothed tigers, but our ancient bodyguard is still scanning for threats with that exact same intensity. We just bombard ourselves with these what-if questions. What if I fail that presentation? What if my partner leaves? What if I chose the entirely wrong career path? What if everything just falls apart? The bodyguard system is basically treating everyday modern uncertainty like a literal life or death threat.
Moving on to Section 3, replaying the past, also known as the 3 a.m. cringe.
So why do we vividly replay past awkward moments in the middle of the night? Well, it's because emotionally significant memories stay highly accessible in our minds. When you physically cringe in bed over something you did years ago, it's actually because your brain is desperately trying to learn a survival lesson. It's asking, okay, what happened there? How can we make absolutely sure we never ever look foolish like that again? But this leads us to a really vital distinction. There is a massive difference between reflection and rumination. Reflection is incredibly productive. It asks a specific question, like, what can I learn from this experience? And once it gets the answer, it moves on. Rumination, however, says, hey, let's relive this exact pain forever. There's no new lesson to discover, you're just hitting the replay button on your own suffering. And unfortunately, our brains don't exactly come with an automatic off switch to tell us when we've crossed the line from reflection into toxic rumination.
Section 4, the information gap and fearing the unknown.
If there is one thing the human brain absolutely despises, it is uncertainty. We hate the unknown. In fact, there's this fascinating quirk of human psychology where we will often prefer a bad answer over having no answer at all. When there's a gap in our knowledge, it feels like a dark room, and our brain immediately populates that darkness with monsters. Going back to that unanswered text message we talked about earlier, watch how this gap just escalates the chaos. As the minutes tick by, your brain rushes to fill the void. First, it's totally reasonable. Maybe they're busy. Then it shifts a bit. Maybe they forgot about me. Then the anxiety spikes. Maybe they're upset. Until finally it's just full-blown catastrophizing. Maybe a terrible accident happened. You don't have enough information, so your imagination simply takes over. And honestly, human imagination is vastly better at inventing disasters than it is at predicting reality.
Section 5. The illusion of control. Thinking as a false shield.
So, why do we let our imaginations run wild like this? Well, because it makes us feel like we're actively doing something to manage a threat. If you're stressed about an upcoming interview, worrying about it for 5 hours feels strangely productive. We use overthinking as this false shield, basically convincing ourselves that if we just analyze a situation deeply enough, we can somehow manage the outcome. Which brings us to a formal definition, the illusion of control. This is the false belief that analyzing a situation long enough will allow you to prevent every possible mistake and just control the future. But think about it for a second. Life doesn't provide perfect information. At a certain point, more thinking doesn't give you clarity. It just generates an infinite web of possibilities. And the more possibilities you see, the higher your anxiety skyrockets. You simply cannot think your way into controlling the future.
Section 6. Emotional reality and why overthinking is just so exhausting. All this constant mental gymnastics takes a severe physical toll. It's exactly why you feel so incredibly exhausted even if you've literally been sitting on the couch all day. Your brain has this terrifying superpower. It can make entirely imagined situations feel emotionally and physically real to your body. Just because you think something doesn't mean it's true, but when you imagine failing or someone yelling at you, your heart rate actually speeds up. Your palms start to sweat, cortisol just floods your system. Nothing bad has actually happened in the real world, but your body is reacting to 10 different imagined problems all at once. Your body genuinely believes the danger is imminent. So no wonder you're exhausted. You've basically been fighting off mental tigers all day long.
Section 7. Breaking the loop and short-circuiting that mental spiral.
All right, so we've mapped out the trap, but how do we actually get out of it? Now, the goal isn't to stop thinking altogether, because that's impossible, but rather to regain control of the steering wheel. Here is a powerful, highly effective 4-step framework you can use right now to stop treating every passing thought like a 5-alarm fire. Step 1. Ask yourself, am I solving a problem here or am I just repeating it? If there's no new information, you're in a loop. Step 2. Write it down. Just get the thought out of your head and onto paper. Seeing it physically makes it infinitely more manageable. Step 3. Focus on one small action. Is there something you can do right this second? If yes, go do it. If no, you have to accept that more thought won't change the outcome. And finally, step 4, return to the present. Look around the physical room you're in right now. Notice what you see. Listen to the sounds. Take a slow, deep breath. Ground yourself in reality, not in your imagination. Always remember this final takeaway. Your thoughts are powerful, but they are not always the truth. Overthinking usually starts as a genuine desire to protect yourself and prepare for the world. But listen, you do not have to solve every possible future. You don't need to answer every single unanswered question. Sometimes the bravest and healthiest thing you can possibly do is just recognize a thought, realize it's not a prediction of the future, and simply let it pass. So, I'm going to leave you with this question to ponder today. Next time your brain hits the panic button, will you let the bodyguard take over, or will you choose to step back into the present?